Pouncing like a lion, I went full force against my enemies, my sword swaying. I, like a hawk, attacked and destroyed them. My breath was like fire. Kadesh bowed before me. Now, this might not sound like a traditional poem that we're used to, but what is poetry? As you heard, these are the words of Ramses II when he defeated the people of Kadesh. Now, poetry does not always have to rhyme. It doesn't even have to make sense. It has to express an inner feeling, a passion. By this being written on a wall, it's Ramses expressing his passion about defeating the Hittites. This poem was from around 3,500 years ago. Through some of my documentaries, I have featured some of my favorite poems from the ancient world, texts from the ancient world if you prefer. Whether it be from a stela of Tutankhamun, or a letter written by Queen Nefertari, or even a poem from Pompeii, an actual poem. In this video, I have put together all of the poems from the ancient world that I have used and highlighted in my documentaries for you to enjoy in one place. Texts from the ancient world give us a huge insight into the minds of these people that interest us even to today. I want to start off with a letter written by Queen Nefertari to the Queen of the Hittites, sending her gifts. I went ahead and asked a friend of mine, Salima Ikram. Many of you would know her from her many ancient Egyptian documentary features that she's been in. Salima has such a beautiful voice, and I thought, why not have the woman with the beautiful voice read the words of the woman with the beautiful face. This letter or poem by Nefertari to the Queen of the Hittites was featured in my series Egypt Through the Ages, as well as the documentary where I investigated the entire life of Queen Nefertari, known as Nefertari, the Life of an Egyptian Queen.
The great queen, Nefertari of the land of Egypt, speaks thus. To my sister, Pudehepa, the great queen of the Hittite land, I, your sister, also be well. May your country be well. I have learned that you, my sister, have written to me asking after my health. You have written to me because of the good friendship and brotherly relationship between our brother and the king of Egypt. The Egyptian sun god and the Hittite storm god will bring about peace, and he will make the brotherly relationship between the great kings last forever. I have sent you a gift in order to greet you, my sister. For your neck, a necklace of pure gold, composed of 12 bands and weighing 88 shekels, blue-coloured linen for one royal dress for the king, and a total of 12 linen garments.
We continue our thought pattern along the 19th dynasty of ancient Egypt with an actual poem a dedication written by Ramses II to Queen Nefertari that was translated from the inscriptions in her lavishly decorated tomb. The poem speaks of Ramses' immense love and appreciation for his queen, read by a friend of mine, Egyptologist Ahmed Lamy Drwish. This was also featured in my Amazon Prime series, Egypt Through the Ages, as well as the Nefertari Life of an Egyptian Queen documentary.
My love is unique. No one can rival her, for she is the most beautiful woman alive. Just by passing, she has stolen away my heart. She who fills the colonnaded halls with her perfume, the land bought. Her perfect breast draped in the finest of white linens, slender necked. Gold is nothing compared to her arms. Her fingers are like lotus petals. Her waist is narrow, round buttocks, skin as firm and soft as milk. Her hair is color of the darkest lavender. Beautiful face, my love for her is unique. No one can rival her. She is the most beautiful woman in the world, beloved of moods, Nefertari, the beauty of the beauties.
Serag al-Din is an Egyptian actor, and he has such an emotive voice that I asked him to read the next poem, Inscription, which is from the restoration stela of Tutankhamun after Tut became pharaoh, where he restored all of the ancient gods of Egypt. When he died, his son Tutankhamun became the next king, and he reinstated all of the gods as we know from the restoration stela.
I have restored what was in ruins. As monuments of an eternal age, I have dispelled injustice throughout the two lands.
In another one of my documentaries, An Ancient Egyptian Family Feud, where I chronicle the entire story of the Ramesside family of the 19th dynasty in Egypt, I had my friend and British Egyptologist John J. Johnston read the words of Ramses II on his building projects throughout the land of Egypt. This might not seem like a poem, but it does express Ramses' passion for building.
Ramses took up the challenge of completing all of his father Seti's building projects. We even have Ramses' words on how much these buildings meant to him.
I have scoured both the upper and lower lands for only the finest craftsmen to complete my temples and those of my father Seti.
Ramses used only the best to finish off all of his temples, starting with the hypostyle hall at Karnak.
In the same documentary, Ancient Egyptian Family Feud, John J. Johnston lent his voice again to read an ostraca from the scribe Passer. This was around a tumultuous time in the 19th dynasty, where in the documentary Ancient Egyptian Family Feud, we investigate how this family ended. And this ostraca, this letter found, really does describe the magnitude of the situation in Egypt that time.
It does appear that the Chancellor Bey did make an attempt to take the throne. However, this was stopped by Tawazrit. An ostraca found at Deir al-Medina tells us that Bey was executed in year 5 of Siptah's reign. Why would he have been executed unless he had done something that went directly against the state? The ostraca suggests he was executed directly on orders of the pharaoh.
On this day, the scribe of the tomb, Pesa, came announcing, "Pharaoh has killed the great enemy, Bey."
In my newest documentary, Egyptian Secrets at Pompeii, where I went to Pompeii to investigate the connection between Pompeii and ancient Egypt. A very dear friend of mine, who is an Egyptologist and a mummy expert, lent me her voice, where she became Isis, the Egyptian goddess Isis. The stela came from Cyrene in Greece, where we have someone's interpretation of the words of Isis. As we know, the Egyptian goddess Isis was worshipped later on throughout the Mediterranean. So this piece is so interesting to see how Egypt, the religion of Egypt, spread throughout the Mediterranean, to hear what we believe is a dictation from Isis. This stela, this poem, is so beautiful. It gives us such great imagery about the power of the Egyptian goddess.
I, Isis, am the only ruler of time, sole inspector of the limits of the sea and the land. With scepter in hand, their one mistress. In fact, all name me Supreme Goddess, the greatest of all gods in heaven. For I myself have discovered everything and took on this toil. The writing will prove it, revealing to all my intentions, which I disclose to you as the fruits of life. I fortify the cities with reverend walls, and to you I have allowed knowledge and skills. Without me, nothing has ever come to existence. Neither do the stars move on the same journey without having first received from me their instructions. Nor will the earth bear fruit in spring if I did not approve all. I grant you love and life and good fortune.
Next up, we have Egyptologist Noura Khedr, and Noura led her voice to read a hymn to Isis from the Egyptian temple Philae. The hymn to Isis tells about her role in the rejuvenation of the rebirth of not only the river Nile, but her husband, Osiris. And to have an Egyptian woman such as Noura reading these words written to Isis 1,000 years ago, it's a very moving experience. And this is around the time of the Ptolemies, which is why I wanted to include it in Egyptian Secrets at Pompeii, because that is the time frame that we were investigating in this documentary.
Isis, giver of life, residing in the sacred mound, the lady of Begat Philae, she, the one who pours out the inundation that makes all people live and green plants grow, to provide divine offerings for the gods and invocation offerings for Osiris. 4, she's the Lady of Heaven. Her man is the Lord of the next world, the pure water, rejuvenating himself at Philae in his time. Her son is Lord of the land. Indeed, she's the Lady of Heaven and a new world. She who brought them into existence through what her heart conceived and her hands created. She's the soul that is in every city, watching over her son Horus and her love Osiris.
To end off Egyptian Secrets at Pompeii, I wanted to hear the words of someone who actually lived at Pompeii. So there are a couple wall inscriptions, graffito if you like, one of which I fell in love with, which is called Amora Sickness, which is written by a woman explaining to her driver, she's a noblewoman of course because she has a driver, explaining to her driver how to get to Pompeii, and he must hurry up and take her there because she needs to see the man that she loves. So I thought of no one better than my friend Stephanie Jarvis to read this, because Stephanie has such a great way of emoting words and she has such a great enthusiasm for the past. This was like a match made in heaven, having Stephanie read the words of an ancient noblewoman living at Pompeii. And what's great about this clip that you're going to see next is we see the handwriting of this woman, which was written on the walls, preserved for these thousands of years. In Pompeii, we can see the actual handwriting of this woman from her poem. It's quite moving to be connected to something so simple, and the words that have been translated from Latin are so beautiful.
If you could only feel the fires of love, driver, you would hurry more to enjoy the pleasures of Venus. I love young charmer. Please, spur on the horses. Let's go on. You've had your drink. Let's go. Take the reins and crack the whip. Take me to Pompeii, where my sweet love lives.
And there you have it. Those are some of the inscriptions, the letters, the poems that I have used in some of my documentaries. I hope that you enjoy hearing the words of the ancient world, and trust me, there will be more to come. I would like to give a big thank you to my patrons for not only supporting my Egyptology work, but my filmmaking in general. And thank you to all of you for watching and supporting my videos.